Hello, Sober Psychology crew. It's Michael, your guide through the tangled jungle of the human mind. Today, we're staring down a beast so familiar that you might not even notice that it's there: self criticism. You know that voice in your head that says you're not enough, or my personal favorite, which is, why do you even try? You're just a walking disaster. It's like having a roommate who never pays rent, but always leaves dishes in the sink. And here's the hook: this isn't just annoying, it's a psychological saboteur, especially in addiction and recovery, where it can absolutely derail you faster than a bad day at the office. We're going to unpack this with a scalpel, cutting through what self-criticism is, why it's so brutal, and how it ties to sobriety. I'll lean on research, toss in some practical tips that you can actually use, bingo, and sprinkle in humor that won't make you roll your eyes. I'm just kidding. It's 100% going to make you roll your eyes. But you guys know how this channel goes. Whether you're listening on Spotify or watching me gesticulate on YouTube, stick with me. What a gross word. That is not a word that sounds like it actually means. Anyways, this one is for anyone who's ever been their own worst critic, which, let's be honest, it's all of us. So buckle up. Here we go. Welcome to the show where we break down the mental health stigma, navigate sobriety with humor, and prove that it's okay to laugh while you heal. Let's get real, let's get honest, and maybe a little weird. Growth is messy, but you don't have to do it alone. This is Sober Psychology. All right, so last week we had a pretty good episode. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the ones who commented, the ones who showed appreciation for it. As you can tell, if you haven't paid attention to the theme, these last couple of episodes, 3, 4 episodes, have really kind of piggybacked off of each other. That is by design. That's actually not an accident. I'm trying to take elements from previous episodes and expand upon them, not only for you guys, but for myself. A lot of times when I'm writing these scripts, when I'm getting all of my information and data collected, I'm challenged left and right, which was the whole point of this podcast at the beginning, was really just a journal for me to kind of work through things and elements in my life. So this has been fun. But anyways, we're honing in on this one. I realized not only because I have a YouTube podcast, and I've discussed in previous episodes how that's very vulnerable for me. I'm very uncomfortable doing it, surprisingly. As someone who likes to talk as much as I do, I still get very uncomfortable, constantly second guessing what I'm spewing out, always thinking that I'm like an imposter, that I'm not qualified or equipped or whatever. So this one naturally just kind of popped up. Self-criticism. I struggle a lot with it on a daily basis, by the way. And it's something that you have to just constantly work on, And so we're going to work on it today. We're going to dive in. Like I said in the intro, I'm bringing in a lot of research on this one, really kind of honing in on really good research, thorough research, and everything that I say you can go look up. I'm not going to BS you through this, but I'm also going to try my best to throw in personal experience. I try not to write that out in the script. I try and just let that be a natural inclination, but we're going to work on it. So let's just start with the basics. What is self-criticism? Psychologically, it's the mind's habit of turning inward with a whip instead of a mirror, really. It's not just noticing your flaws. That is called self-awareness, and we could all use a dose of that. Yes, I'm talking to you too, myself included. But self-criticism is when you take those flaws, blow them up to Godzilla-sized proportions, and then beat yourself senseless with them. That's self-criticism. That's not healthy, guys, letting you know. It's saying, I forgot one line in that presentation, so I'm clearly unfit to exist. Is that extreme? Sure, but your brain doesn't care about fairness. So that's what self-criticism looks like. Where does it come from? So let's go To the research for this one, Kristen Neff. She is the absolute queen. Neff, N-E-F-F. Kristen Neff. She is the queen of all self-compassion studies. She points out that self-criticism often roots in early experiences. So for instance, if you grew up with parents or teachers or any type of role model, someone who was taking care of you, developing, helping you develop, whatever, if you grew up with them who were quick to point out that you did wrong, your brain learned to mimic those people. It's like downloading a bad app in childhood that just keeps running in the background, okay? Attachment theory, which is courtesy of John Bowlby, who we talked about last week, and and the week before, it backs this up. Insecure attachment styles, especially anxious and avoidant attachment styles, can wire you to expect rejection. So you reject yourself first to beat the world to the punchline. And I don't know if this is very prevalent in your life. I do this a lot. I've done this since I was probably junior high, before my teenage years. I am self-deprecating. I will make fun of myself before you get the opportunity to do so. Because the way that my mind works, I'm so self-critical. I am constantly thinking that I'm not enough. I'm constantly thinking that I'm pathetic. I'm constantly thinking that all these people are looking at me as a fake, as an imposter, as a worthless human being. And so I'll make fun of myself before you get the opportunity to do so. Therefore, robbing you of the ability to hurt me is the way that my brain works, I guess. What I don't realize is that over the course of time, just having that mentality of being that self-critical and harmful to myself, it completely rewires the way that I think. We've talked about this before in previous episodes. You cannot give what you don't have. If I hate myself, if I have no love for myself, how do I give love to somebody else? If there's no peace in me, if I don't have any peace, any calm, any type of serenity, how do I offer that to anybody else around me? Nobody wants to be around someone like that, okay? Now, I had a hard time with this one too, because as someone who is hyper competitive, I like to push myself. So there are times I'll be doing woodworking or I'll be playing a sport or something like that, and I do something that I know that I can do better at. I know that I can be better. My way sometimes of communicating with myself is almost like a loving coach, if you will, of like, get your crap together. Michael, you could do a lot better than that. That I don't see as being harmful. Everybody is different. I can talk to myself pretty. I wouldn't talk to anybody else the way I talk to myself in certain situations, because I know me well enough to know I need that. The best friends that I have in my life, the closest people I have in my life, are the ones that talk to me like that, in a loving way. They know that in order to love me, they need to be honest and brutally honest. Don't sugarcoat and all that. So there's a fine line with the self-criticism. So pay attention to that for yourself. This isn't just a blanket statement. This isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of mentality behind this episode. Everybody's a little bit different. So you have to learn to know yourself. We've talked about this before with the mindfulness. Figure out who you are. Figure out what you can tolerate. I have, fortunately, not only through overcoming what happened to me in my childhood, but also as evolving as I have as an adult human being, I've learned that I'm a lot more resilient than I've given myself credit for, okay? Some people aren't that way, and that's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. My wife is very sensitive. So when you are critical of her, when I'm critical of her, I have to figure out how do I approach it and not talk to her the way that I'm talking to myself, right? Because for me, it gets me gassed up. I'm ready to go. For her, it'll make her retreat. So it's finding that line, right? But it's not just your upbringing. Evolution has a finger in this pie as well. Why am I saying things like this? I don't like that I said that. Gesticulate and finger in the pie. I digress. Our brains are built to scan for threats. So back when that meant that, back when that meant saber-toothed cats, not a missed deadline, right? Things have changed a lot, but self-criticism is your inner caveman saying, you better fix yourself before the tribe kicks you out. The problem is that the tribe is now a spreadsheet and a Wi-Fi signal, but your brain is still waving a club. See, we've talked about this before, how our brains have been developed and they have roots of our cavemen ancestors, right? So just pay attention to that as well. But here's where it gets really absurd. Self-criticism pretends that it's helping. It's like a drill sergeant that's yelling, "You're a mess, but I'll fix you," right? Except it doesn't. It just won't. It doesn't fix you at all. It's more like a guy that I knew who fixed his car by hitting it with a wrench. And the spoiler alert to all this is that the car didn't really thank him for it, right? Studies like those from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology show that self-criticism tanks motivation, okay? You don't run faster because you're calling yourself a loser. You just trip over your own shoelaces. And again, this goes back to what I was saying with knowing yourself. Know your limit, know your level. There's a point where you're being motivational to yourself, and then you're being so harmful and self-critical that you lose all motivation, right? We all have that line that we cross. I've talked about this a little bit, but I live in a world where I have a blue collar background. I live in a city that is derived from all blue collar work for the most part. And being someone who's, a male of reasonable average intelligence that explores on the emotional side, oftentimes it's easy for people to look at me and think that I'm weak. And that's tough, right? Just because you work a blue collar job, or just because you have this tough guy demeanor, everybody has some level of self-criticism and some ability to break. I know a lot of guys, I'm friends with a lot of guys who are very resilient, and you could go and say some things to them and it would not affect them. Whereas you could say it to me and it would probably break me. But everybody has that breaking point, right? Of knowing where is the line of how harshly can someone speak to me before I start to lose motivation, okay? This again, I think ties back into that whole inner child thing. Right? I grew up in a house that's highly critical, okay? And I'm the oldest, so I was expected to be perfect. And so a lot of my self-criticism comes from the fact that the moment that I screwed up, the moment that I did something wrong, it was put out there that I'm wrong. It was immediately criticized. And I learned through that to be self-critical. Again, going back to the defense tactic of like, I'm going to hurt myself before you hurt me kind of thing. So I do have a limit. I'm not I'm not going to beat my chest and act like I got it all figured out, but everybody has a limit. Everybody has a line. You just have to pay attention. You have to know where yours is, okay? Not everybody is the same. Not everybody has the same resilience. Now with this, let's talk about addiction, because self-criticism is like gasoline on that fire. If you've ever struggled with substance abuse or use in general, which, alcohol, opioids, or that third energy drink that you swear isn't a problem, I've been there, all of it. Self-criticism is that voice that kicks you when you're down. You failed again. It says all the time, you're just a failure. You failed again. You might as well have another drink. And research from the National Institute of Drug Abuse shows shame and guilt, which is self-criticism's ugly cousins, drive relapse. Why, you might ask? Because when you hate yourself, numbing the pain feels like the only option. And I've been there, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, been there, where you're filled with so much shame that you just want to bury it. You want to hide it. I screwed up. I might as well just keep going. I am a man of extremes in everything that I do, and it's something that I have to regulate. I got to work on personally. But with the use of drugs and alcohol, and really not even if you're an addict alcoholic, if you drink too much caffeine, if you consume too much of that, if you're smoking too much, if you're watching Netflix too much, if you're eating too much sugar, whatever mechanism you use to cope, there's a line for all of that too, right? And then you finally get to this point where it's like, well, I've already eaten half the pint of ice cream. I've eaten a pint of ice cream. I might as well just eat the whole gallon. Yeah, I mean, that's just a terrible place to be. Shame and guilt is also a very big one with the self-criticism. I have known a couple of people who relapsed, and the shame and guilt led them to suicide. And that is a very real reality. I've questioned that with myself. I'm very proud to be sober. I'm very proud, but I'm still a baby in my sobriety. I've only got 4 years. Now, granted, that's a huge achievement for me. That's very big for me. And in the 4 years that I've been sober, a lot has happened in my life that's really good. I can't imagine what would happen if I relapsed. Now, do I know that there are people around me who love me enough to challenge me in that, to not let me continue to go down that road? Yeah, I know that for a fact. But for me, I think I would struggle with the self-hate a lot. I struggle with that in general on a day-to-day basis. You're not good enough. You're not doing this right. You're not a good enough husband. You're not a good enough dad. You're not a good enough student. I got straight A's. I've been on the dean's list for the first time in my life since like 2008 when I started college. And here I am telling myself I'm not doing enough, right? It's never enough. I'm one of those guys that I will bust my tail to sit down and write the most immaculate research paper that I can do. And then instead of feeling a sense of achievement of like, you did a good job, you applied yourself, I sit there and tell myself, okay, now you got more to do. What's next? Just check it off the list, right? Shame and guilt is a very, very big element in the recovery community that is tough. I think part of it is the way that we talk to ourselves. I think another part of it is the way that society views us, right? You're an addict alcoholic, you got a problem. You're less than, if you will. So a lot of these guys that get their lives back on track and they get sober and everything's good, get their family back in their lives and get, consistent work and start paying bills again. And then all of a sudden they relapse, right? Because we're trying to escape ourselves and the self-criticism kicks in. And then all of a sudden there's so much shame and guilt that we cannot even face going to somebody and saying, I screwed up. I relapsed. I'm back in the trenches. And, like I said, I've known guys who take the easier way out of that, I guess, the way that it seems the easier way of just ending their lives. So the self-criticism can get very dark very quickly. When I was drinking, I would tell myself that I want to quit, but I don't deserve to. I don't deserve a good life. I don't deserve anything good because I've been a bad person, right? I've chosen to do bad things. That's just self-criticism talking. It's not just a thought, it's a neurological loop, okay? Brain scans, believe they did this at UCLA, they show that the amygdala lights up during self-critical thoughts, which triggers your fight or flight. We've talked about this before, okay? Your body thinks that it is under attack, except the enemy is you, right? And in active addiction, this fuels the cycle. You use, you criticize, you use again to escape the criticism. It just stays in this cycle, this cyclical loop, right? It's a hamster wheel with no off switch. And that is a scary spot to be. It's exhausting, it's tiring. You can't seem to grasp anything, no control whatsoever. But in recovery, here's where it gets interesting, which I looked more into this than what I actually already knew. And this is pretty cool how it all lines up. And you can look more in depth than what I'm gonna go, but this is cool. Sobriety forces you to face the inner tyrant, right? And that's what we're just gonna refer to it as, that self-critical mindset. You can't hide in a bottle anymore when you're in recovery. So self-criticism steps in to the spotlight, and it is loud. Let me tell you what, it's very loud. Early recovery is brutal because you're tallying up the wreckage, the lost jobs, the broken trusts, the people that you hurt, whatever it may be. And then your brain's screaming, this is all your fault. But here's the flip side of that. Recovery is also where you can rewrite the script, okay? It is a dark place to be sometimes in recovery. I've told y'all this before. When I got out of my 5th step, 4th step, even when I was beyond the 12th step, I had graduated from the 12-step program. That is a tough battle, family. That is a tough battle. I'm gonna let y'all know of being so self-critical. You start to reflect on the things that you've done. And then especially if you're in the process of 8 and 9, you're starting to work through your amends list and you're having to dig all of this up in a very honed in way. You really develop a self-hatred with that criticism, right? You're so harshly critical of yourself that you begin to hate yourself. And I've been there. I still struggle with it. It's real. That is a tough one. So let's lean on cognitive behavioral therapy, which is, hey, that's the wheelhouse. Let's do it. CBT, baby, cognitive behavioral therapy. Just for a second, bear with me. Albert Ellis, who is one of cognitive behavioral therapy's pioneers. Is it okay if I just say CBT? That's a mouthful. Anyways, Albert Ellis, who is one of its pioneers, he called self-criticism the irrational beliefs. Okay? His research showed you can actually challenge those thoughts. Surprise, mindfulness, look at there. Say what you're thinking. I'm a failure because I relapsed. Okay. CBT will tell you, is that true? Evidence says that you're a human, not a failure. You're still out here fighting. That's data. That's not feelings. Studies like those in behavioral research therapy show that cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, reduces self-critical thought by 30 to 40% in some cases. That's not magic. Ladies and gents, that is just rewiring, is all that is. We're so harsh on ourselves, and I'm not sitting here saying to justify everything that you're doing. I'm not sitting here saying, you go and run your car through the front of a gas station. You're wrong. You did something wrong. You're an adult. You have to face the consequences of those actions. But you have to learn to give yourself a little bit of grace. Okay. We've talked about this a little bit before in the previous episodes. It's one of the hardest parts about my relationship with God is that there's enough grace and mercy in the relationship and the way that He loves me, that He has already forgiven me for what I've done. Okay. That's Jesus, right? And so if I am not willing to accept the forgiveness on some level, I'm basically spitting in God's face. And I don't want to make a habit of that. Okay. I haven't seen the wrath of God. I've read about it in the Old Testament. I don't want to experience any of that, right? If there is a point where I am not allowing myself to forgive myself, then I'm spitting in God's face because He already forgave me, right? This is a tough one too. When you're going through your amends process as an addict alcoholic, you go through the steps and you go back to face old relationships, exes, right? I was a terrorist. I was a monster in the relationships that I had with girlfriends, with fiance, with wife. Okay. And so the hard part about that is that you cannot take back what you did. You already did it. Right. But what you can do, and this is kind of awkward, but it is the reality, is say, I'm just never going to treat anyone like that again. I'm going to show up better in the next marriage. I'm going to show up better in the next relationship, whatever it is. But all of this is based on the fact that you're willing to look into it and forgive yourself on some level, find that grace so you can be less critical of who you are and begin to rewire your brain. It's tough. It's difficult. It's simple, but it's not easy, right? So here's tip number 1. Challenge the critic. Next time that voice pipes up, treat it like a bad lawyer, okay? Ask, where's your evidence? Write it down if you have to. 2 columns. You have one side that here's what the critic is saying, and then the other side, here's what the facts are saying. So an example of this is your self-critical mindset thinking, I'm worthless because I missed a meeting. Okay, that's the critic talking. The other side of this is going to be the fact where it says you missed 1 meeting. You've shown up to 10 others. Now, the critic is not lying at all. You did miss a meeting. That's not good. You're going to have to face the consequences for that. But what the critic is doing is just cherry picking, right? And that's where we get so locked in on the small stuff that we then overgeneralize and think, oh, I'm just awful altogether. Okay, this also works in recovery. I'm a bad person because I used. Okay, that's the critic talking, and then the fact of it says you're in recovery, which takes guts most people can't muster. Okay, right? You used, is that bad? For sure. Are you going to face the consequences for it? For sure. But that doesn't make you a bad person. You chose to do a bad thing. The fact of it is that you're at least trying, right? You're grabbing the flimsy reed and you're saying, I need help. I got to get back on the bandwagon here. I got to go and do the right thing. Okay, that you got guts. All right, stop hating yourself because you messed up. Tip number 2 is talk to yourself like a friend. Okay, we've talked about this before. I can't say this enough. I say this to myself all the time, right? It sounds simple, but it's backed by Neff's work on self-compassion. If your buddy relapsed, okay, let's just hypothetically here. If your buddy relapsed, would you say, hey man, you're garbage. Why don't you just give up? No, I hope you wouldn't. That's not a friend. If you are that person, that's not a friend. You'd say, man, this sucks. This is bad. This is not good. But you know what? You got it. You know what to do. Let's get you back. Let's get you back to progressing. Okay. You don't look at someone and say, you relapse, you suck. You're awful. Give up. Just quit. If you are that person, don't be a friend. Just go hide somewhere and work on yourself, please. Just get better. Just be better. So try that talk on yourself. right? Brain scans from Stanford, again, go look this up. They show that self-compassion activates the prefrontal cortex, which is your rational brain, that's the adult in the situation, while calming the amygdala. We've, again, talked about this in depth. In recovery, this is gold, I'm telling you. Instead of, I'm a failure, just try, I slipped, but I'm still on the path, okay? It's not fluffy, it's just science. We say this all the time. The amygdala is the alarm system. I suck. I'm awful. I screwed up. There's no point in me existing. The prefrontal cortex is the one that says, okay, why did we do this? What happened here? How can we start to make this better? All you're doing when you're doing these weird mindfulness things where you're talking to yourself or you're naming the emotion is you're turning it from that alarm system, the amygdala, into the prefrontal cortex where it can start to process through the appropriate way. All right, boom. Now, I'm sure you're probably thinking, Michael, talking to myself like that feels like I'm auditioning for a self-help infomercial, and that is 100% fair. I get it. I've tried it. I've done it before. I do it all the time. And every now and then it feels like I'm whispering sweet nothings to my ego. But here's the thing. It works. It's just what it is. Amygdala to the prefrontal cortex. That's all we're trying to do. It's like flossing, right? Nobody loves it, but your teeth thank you later for it. And if it feels weird, blame your brain. It spent years perfecting the art of kicking you in the shins. So it's your brain's fault. So let's go a little bit deeper. I told y'all we're gonna take a scalpel. We're just gonna go after this. Laser cut precision. Self-criticism is not just a habit, it's a defense. Psychoanalyst Carl Jung, who is one of my favorites, would say that it's your shadow, the parts of you you'd rather not see. And in addiction, the shadow is big. It's monstrous. It's a very big shadow, okay? The shadow looks, in addiction, the shadow is going to look more like shame, fear, regret, whatever. So self-criticism tries to control it by saying, if I hate myself enough, maybe I'll change. It's just not it. But it's like yelling at your plant to grow faster. And Jung's answer to all of this is integration, which just means facing those parts without judgment. In recovery, that's step 4. In AA, make a searching and fearless moral inventory. You look at your shadow, not to flog yourself, but to understand it. This is tough. It is not easy. Folks, I'm telling you right now, everyone in rehab fears the 4th step. I feared the 4th step. I hated it until something clicked and I realized, holy crap, all this is I'm just facing my demons so I can get a better understanding of what's going on so I can learn how to get rid of it, okay? Or if you don't get rid of it, at least you're able to now face it and work on it. These monsters that we have, the self-critical talk, all of these skeletons that we keep in the closet, these bad habits, whatever, they're not as scary when you shed a little bit of light on them. And you'll learn that, right? That's a very important part. So here's where neuroscience begins to chime in. The default mode network, which is your brain's daydreaming circuit, basically, it gets hijacked by self-criticism. And studies from Yale show that it's overactive in depression, which often tags along with addiction. Depression, addiction, we're now talking about the fuel for that fire, right? Meditation, even 5 minutes a day, dials it down. That's not woo-woo, it's MRI scans showing less rumination. In sobriety, this means less time obsessing over I'm not good enough and more time building a life. Very important. So that's going to bring us to tip number 3, practice mindfulness. I know I just lost half of you to visions of yoga retreats, but stay with me, promise. Mindfulness is just noticing your thoughts without signing their petition. That's it. When the critic says you're a fraud, don't argue, just say, there's that thought again. Research from Mindfulness Journal shows this cuts self-critical rumination by up to 25%. And in recovery, that is a lifeline, right? Craving hits, the critic starts yelling, which the critic, by the way, we're referring to as that's what we're naming our brain thoughts for being overly critical. But that craving hits you, the critic starts yelling, mindfulness will say, I see you, but I'm not buying it, right? Try an app like, what's it called, Headspace, or just breathe. for 60 seconds. Work on the breathing exercises, whatever you can figure out. It's free, it's portable, whatever you can do that's obtainable right there in the moment, right? The amygdala going off. It's all that is. So now let's zoom out for a second. Self-criticism doesn't just haunt addiction. It's everywhere. I'm telling y'all, it's everywhere. Work, relationships, that time that you burned dinner and felt like a culinary war criminal. It's universal because we're wired for it. But here's the kicker. You don't have to obey it. Viktor Frankl, who we have talked about, I think in the last 2 episodes, I started reading into him, and this dude is just on another level of motivational. But Viktor Frankl, he's the one who survived the Nazi camps and then wrote Man's Search for Meaning. He said that freedom lies in choosing your response. Freedom lies in choosing your response. Self-criticism is a reflex, not a rule. So let's say this again. Let's get closer. Self-criticism is a reflex, not a rule. We're going to go over here. Self-criticism is a reflex, not a rule. And over here, self-criticism is a reflex, not a rule. Write it down, okay? In recovery, choosing a new response is the whole game, okay? You're not erasing the past. You're writing a new chapter, right? You are the only person who has control over you. You don't control anybody else. You don't control these thoughts that are coming in. You can control those. And it takes work and it takes practice, and it's 100% worth it when you're looking for the freedom on the other end of this. I'm going to go ahead and give y'all a bonus tip, which I should have put in there just in general. But tip number 4 for doing this, for working through this, if you go and look, if you're in a 12-step program, even if you're not, step 12, you begin to help other people. Okay? You begin to help others. If you're all balled up in your head and everything is going crazy and that amygdala is screaming at you and you're hateful to yourself and you want to end everything and whatever dark place that you get to, find an opportunity to help somebody. And we've talked about this before. I know that we live in a day and age where technology is rampant and the face-to-face communication is lacking. If you're at the grocery store and you see somebody carrying their groceries, and maybe they're an elderly person, maybe it's a mom with 4 kids hanging off of her, she's trying to just wrangle cats, you can go help, okay? I know everybody's scared of everybody because no one is seemingly trustworthy anymore these days. Get past it. Even just offering to help can sometimes be help. Call a friend, someone you haven't talked to in a while. These people that you pay attention to on Facebook that you don't really have a lot to just send a Facebook message. Hey, brother, hope you're doing well. Saw that you've got 2 kids now. Your family is looks beautiful. Just wanted to reach out and say I really am proud of you. Really grateful. I was just thinking about you. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Start to help people, because when you help people, scientifically proven, it will take the attention off of yourself. And the problem is when we are in this self-critical mindset, we are always thinking about us. And then that just continues to compound and compound and compound until we've become these little emotional narcissists who only care about our feelings. Get out of that. Tip number 4, go help somebody. Okay? All right, that got intense. One last laugh for you. Self-criticism is like a bad stand-up comic who's only there to roast you. Picture it bombing on stage while you heckle. Is that all you got? I have a friend who named her inner critic Gary and said that it made it easier to yell at him and tell him to shut the F up. So just try it. Call yours Susan. I don't care. Call it Dave. Whatever. It's not a cure, but it reminds you that you are not the punchline, right? So what's the takeaway from all of this rambling? Self-criticism is an inner tyrant, period. But it's not your boss. It's loud in addiction, deafening in early recovery, but you can turn down the volume. You've got the power to do that. Challenge it with facts. Treat yourself like a friend. Practice mindfulness. Go help other people. These aren't just tips. They're tools to reclaim your mind. Research says that it works. Recovered addicts, alcoholics say that it works. I'm telling you that it works, and I'm betting it's going to work for you. Thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. This works, I'm telling you. So here's your challenge. Pick one tip. I don't care which one, whichever one it is, pick one tip. Just one. That's it. Don't try and do all 4 of them and then hate yourself or be self-critical because you didn't get them all accomplished. Pick one tip and try it out this week. Notice what shifts. If you're in recovery, just know this: every step that you take, even the shaky ones, is proof that you're stronger than that damn voice. You're not perfect, you're human, and sometimes that is just enough, right? So anyways, thank you all for joining me, Sober Psychology crew. Audio listeners, I'll see you in the next episode. YouTube folks, smash that like button if this hit home. Subscribe if you're new. Drop a comment. What is your inner critic's favorite line, and how do you shut it up? Let's keep this real. So until next time, be kind to yourself. You are worth it. I promise you, you are worth it. Okay? Keep your head up. Keep your heart open. Go help somebody. Okay? Love you guys.